genuine precepts of Jesus himself, I am a Christian, that I embrace the teachings of Jesus Christ.
What did Thomas Jefferson really believe about Christianity? Hear more from Stephen McDowell on America's Providential History at afr.net/podcasts.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Robert Thornton. President Donald Trump says White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt will be leaving the administration at the end of the month to spend time with her family. Leavitt, who served Trump as a press aide during his first go-around to the White House, has been one of the most visible advocates of Trump's Make America Great Again movement. Fox's Jackie Heinrich gave her thoughts on Leavitt.
Very accessible and in the room with the president, as opposed to under the Biden administration, for example, when we would try to get answers from Karine Jean-Pierre, often it was apparent that she wasn't as close to the decision makers and able to give us valuable information as Caroline has been in her time here. So this is going to be a big loss for this White House.
Trump described her as one of his most trusted aides in a social media post announcing her departure. A Marine Corps veteran returned to the U.S. yesterday after being released by Russia. Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey reported that Robert Gilman was tortured in prison before his release. Kieran Ramsey, a Gilman family representative, joined Fox.
We'll start with the fact he's very frail. If you've seen any of the photos that the White House has since released, you can see just how frail he is, his medical condition. He was unable to really walk off the plane on his own. And he's going to need a lot of mental health care, psychological health care, let alone the physical and even dental health care that's going to be required.
He went on to say that Russia has a long history of purposefully targeting Americans. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani recently threatened to arrest Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in New York, although he dropped that after looking into his options. Brad Nutt is a U.S. representative from North Carolina and was asked by Washington Watch guest host Jody Heiss if he thought that Mamdani's actions have contributed to anti-Semitism and violence in America.
Zohran Mamdani has been very clear that he is very sympathetic to whether it's to Hamas terrorists, whether it's to far-left extremes who target Christians and Jews all over the country. He has given a real foothold to the very dangerous ideologies. And without any hesitation, it's the Mamdani wing of the Democratic Party that I think rightfully has a lot of Christians and a lot of Jews concerned.
A Wisconsin conservative activist expects a close race for governor following the results of last night's primaries in the Badger State. AFN's Chad Groening has more.
The race was close, but in the end, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley won the Democrat gubernatorial primary, defeating Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong. Crowley is vying to become Wisconsin's first black governor and has pitched himself as the candidate best positioned to win in November against Republican U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany, who is endorsed by President Donald Trump and won overwhelmingly in the GOP primary. Daniel Degner is president of Wisconsin Family Action.
What we learned in Wisconsin last night is that voters in swing states overwhelmingly reject a far-left socialist agenda. Really glad to see that socialism is not taking over our state.
Real Clear polling shows Crowley with a 2-point advantage in general election polls against Tiffany.
That is within the margin of error. So what we are going to expect in Wisconsin is what we expect in Wisconsin every election, and that's tight elections. Those are elections that come down to less than 30,000 votes statewide. If you look at the 2016, 2020, 2024, those races all came down to about a percentage point. There's even more of an importance to vote now because in Wisconsin, every vote matters. And we saw that last night with this election coming down to less than 3,000 votes statewide. It will be a very tight race as we look at November.
Degner says when it comes to the issues, there will be a clear choice between the two candidates in November. I'm Chad Groening.
KERA News reports a newly formed commission is set to advise Fort Worth, Texas on data center regulations. The commission will include community members, academics, and industry experts. It will conduct a fact-based evaluation focusing on the center's impact on electricity and energy, water, and economic development. It will also consider setback, noise, lighting, and other development standards. And that is all our time for this hour's news. We invite you to find more news online at afn.net. I'm Robert Thornton.
Life can be hard, but we have to keep our eyes focused on Jesus. I'm Christy Graham, host of On the Ground with Samaritan's Purse, and I want to encourage you in your walk with God. Listen each week as we go behind the scenes of our work around the world. You'll be challenged and encouraged in your own faith as you hear how God is actively changing lives. Join us for On the Ground with Samaritan's Purse, Sundays at 8:30 a.m. Central, right here on American Family Radio.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
And this is Bishop E.W. Jackson in for Abraham Hamilton III. My pleasure to sit in the big seat. And thank you all so much for your support for him, for this program, for the American Family Radio Network, and for the entire constellation of American Family Association Ministries and all that we try to do to help promote the gospel of Jesus Christ first and foremost, and to save our country by restoring its Judeo-Christian values, its fundamental principle that liberty and rights do not come from people or from government. They come from Almighty God. Thank you all for being a part of what we are doing. We couldn't do it without you. All right, well, listen, a lot to talk about tonight. I want to begin with something a little bit personal. I'm going to take that into a broader policy issue. Some of you may not know this, but our organization has a website called America's Forgotten Children. America's Forgotten Children. No apostrophe after the S. AmericasForgottenChildren.com or .org. We own both of those URLs. And that site is down because it's been hacked and sabotaged, and we are working hard to get it back up and running. And it seems that a couple of our websites have suffered the same attacks. I'm sure that, American Family Association is no stranger to this kind of thing, because those of us who are standing up for the Word of God, it seems, are subject to these kinds of attempts to destroy what we're doing. We're undaunted. We're not budged. We're not moved. We're not in any way intimidated by this. We will overcome it and create a higher level of security for our website. But I said all that because that particular website chronicles all of the innocent children who have been murdered since the Defund the Police movement began. And there's 717 of them now. 717 children. And again, we exclude gangbangers. This does not include people who are involved in crime or the drug trade. These are innocent children. I think the youngest one murdered is 3 months old. Well, actually 1 month old. There's a 3-month-old child that was murdered as well. And these are children who are often caught in the crossfire, or somebody decides to shoot up the house that they live in. They're sleeping in their beds, or they're playing in their living rooms, or sitting. In one case, a child was getting a haircut, and somebody decides to shoot up the neighborhood. Innocent child is murdered. 717 of them. There was a recent one that happened, 12-year-old in New York, and they made a story of that. But what they're failing to do is connect the dots. This is an epidemic across the country. By the way, greatly diminished since President Trump took office. Greatly diminished. We have noticed a significant downturn in the number of children murdered since President Trump took office because, as you all know, crime is down to the lowest level since 1900. And kudos to President Trump for taking action and setting a tone that says we're not putting up with you thugs and you criminals, and you're not going to hide behind race or hide behind poverty or some other nonsense. We're going to find you, we're going to bring you to justice, and we're going to lock you up. And in some cases, frankly, some of them ought to be executed. But here we are, 717 children murdered. By the way, Chicago is the worst. Chicago has more murders than all the cities of Florida combined this year. More murders than all the cities of Florida combined. This is what happens when these far-left people run things. Now, I wanted to bring up, so pray for us that our website will be back up, and we'll continue to chronicle this, because what we really want to do is use this as a way of talking about the real issue. The real issue is not racism. The real issue is not poverty. The real issue is the breakdown of the family. The people doing this stuff are generally kids raised in single-parent, female-headed households, often very young mothers. The kids are raising themselves. They're being raised by the streets, and they're taught to be dog-eat-dog criminals. They're taught to live like animals. And they go out and hurt other people. And most of the people that they hurt, by the way, are other black people, overwhelmingly. But, you're not allowed to say that because, after all, we know that the real problem of danger in the black community is the police hunting down black men. That's the real problem, right? I'll tell you, this stuff, it disgusts me, because how many bodies you have to step over, and many of those bodies, the bodies of children, you have to step over before you can finally get to the one that allows you to make a political point. Oh, look at the racism, look at the racism, look at this, look at this. And you literally step on hundreds of bodies that you have to ignore that have been murdered in order to get to that one that you can use. It's disgusting. But this socialist, you all probably caught this interview, this socialist was being asked by an interviewer, well, look, if my wife is raped, I don't know whether he included murder there, but my wife is raped, what do you do with the person who has raped my wife? What do you do with that person? You don't believe in prisons. I mean, what are you going to do with that person? She says, I don't want to get involved in hypotheticals. Did you all see that? Yeah, I don't want to get involved in hypotheticals. I mean, that's not a hypothetical. That's a real world situation. It's happening every single day in this country, mainly in the cities that they run. But let me explain to you, you probably already know this, but not everybody would, why they won't answer that question and what that question gets at. What do you do with the person who's committed the crime? These people are dyed-in-the-wool Marxists. They are communists. And what they believe is that when you have a revolution in America and you change the American system, you get it away from capitalism and you create a true socialist utopia, people won't commit crimes. You won't need prisons. Because the only reason why people commit crimes is because of the inequities produced by capitalism. And once you get rid of that, people won't, they will not even want to commit crimes. Remember, Mayor Brendan Johnson was asked, what do you do? What do you think is the best way to address the crime problem? Do you all remember what he said? We have to build more affordable housing. I mean, you got to have BBs for brains to believe that. But he actually said that. We have to build more affordable housing. I mean, you can almost see it now. The thug, the gangbanger, the murderer, the rapist, he says, oh, you know what? They're building more affordable housing. I don't have to commit crimes anymore. Hey, everybody, let's just get packed up and get ready to move into our affordable housing because we don't have to be criminals now. I mean, this is the silliness. This is the absurdity. These people actually believe that human beings don't commit wrongs like this for any reason other than society's injustice that forces them to it. And once you get rid of the injustices of society and you create a system of perfect social justice, nobody will be interested in committing crimes anymore. You know, they practically got rid of the mafia in Russia. Because after all, once you had socialism in Russia, the mafia didn't want to commit crimes. Well, there was a little added incentive, which was that the Soviet Union would kill you. I mean, they would just literally kill you. You remember the Russian mafia? Yeah. boom, they blow your brains out. They take you out back and blow your brain. I mean, there was no joke about what was going to happen to you if you were found to be a member of organized crime. It wasn't that people didn't want it or want to commit crime, and that people didn't still commit crime, but there was a heavy price to pay. And you've got these idiots running around our country thinking that somehow they're going to create a system for people just say, you know what, boy, I'll tell you, things are just so just, and they're just so good. I don't even have the impulse to commit crimes anymore. I'm just going to go collect my socialist check and live in my socialist housing and eat my socialist food and drive my socialist car. And I am just content now. Because they do not understand human nature. They have rejected God. They think we evolved out of the cosmic ooze, and they don't understand that the human heart is wicked above everything. Who can know it? They don't realize crime doesn't come out of poverty. Crime comes out of the sinfulness of the human heart. Because if that weren't the case, once a person was no longer poor, they wouldn't commit crimes anymore. But people of all income classes commit crimes. This is the absurdity. That's why they won't answer the question, because they know if they said what they really believe, which is pure Marxism, people would look at them and go, what? Are you crazy? I mean, as if they're not already crazy enough. Speaking of that, Francesca Hong lost her bid for the governorship because she was a little bit too crazy, apparently, even for Bernie Sanders and AOC. Now, not too crazy for them ideologically, but too crazy for them in terms of how much it was revealed what she really thinks. You'll remember Rush Limbaugh used to say, liberals have to lie about what they really think, because if people knew what they really think, nobody would ever vote for them. So the smarter ones say, yeah, of course we believe in abolishing prisons, but stupid, don't tell people that. Yeah, of course we hate Thanksgiving because it's imbued with all kinds of thanks to God and all that, but don't be so stupid as to tell people that. And on it goes with the bizarre ideas that these people hold. Pure Marxism is what they're following, pure communism, frankly. And you know, one of Marx's principles was ruthlessly criticize everything. Yeah, Marx said ruthlessly criticize everything. In other words, completely dismantle the whole construct of a society that is rooted and grounded in what they would call bourgeois values. You know, faith in God, family, and all that. The family's nothing but a slave system. And you know, belief in God is the opiate of the masses. So reject all that's bourgeois values that you have to get rid of. And that's exactly what these people believe. I think most Democrats think that way. I mean, Jerry Nadler, remember when I think it was Chip Roy who read a scripture about cross-dressing from the Bible, I think from the book of Leviticus. And Jerry Nadler said, you know, this house is not interested in what any God has to say about anything. Well, that's the way they all think. You remember the ridicule that we've gotten as Christians when some tragedy happens and we say, yeah, our prayers go up in behalf of these people. We don't need your prayers. We don't need your prayers. Because for them, government is God. And you go beg the government, and the government answers all things. Why are you silly people talking about God? That's really where they're coming from. That's the way they think. So they have this mechanistic view of life that we just create the utopia we want. Everything will be perfect. You've heard me say this before. Marxism is nothing but an attempt to create the kingdom of God without God. And you know whose idea that is. This is Bishop E.W. Jackson and for Abraham Hamilton III. Stand by, folks. There's more to come. Back in a moment.
A Discipleship Minute with Joseph Parker.
Our words are powerful, much more so than we as human beings typically understand. A saying that used to be popular years ago stated, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me." This is possibly one of the biggest lies you will ever hear. Words can hurt to an extreme degree, and people use them to hurt others every single day. Yet for us as believers, followers of Christ, our goal is to use our words every day to bless others and point them to Christ. Our words should bless others, promote healing in people's lives, grace and encouragement in the lives of those around us. We should habitually lift others up by our words. It is in fact relatively easy to bless others and encourage people with our words if we wisely and very deliberately seek to do so.
When was the last time your family truly unplugged from technology? In Luke chapter 10, in a well-known story, Jesus told Martha, "You are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed." This week's healthy habit is a tech Sabbath. Set aside a few hours or even a day each week to disconnect from your screens, from technology. And not only that, but reconnect intentionally with God, with your family, with the world and people around you. Technology constantly tells us something urgently needs our attention, but Jesus reminds us that only a few things are truly necessary, and only a few people are the most important in our lives. What might your family rediscover if you regularly stepped away from devices to focus on what and who matters most? Try it out, and I'll see you on the Dr. Nurse Mama Show here on American Family Radio.
Hi, I'm Jan Harper. If you're a pastor's wife, you know both the blessings and the unique challenges that come with the life you and your husband live daily. We call it living in the fishbowl.
Details have been announced for the 2026 Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat. Once again, this year's retreat will be at Pickwick Landing State Park in Counce, Tennessee. From October 20th through the 22nd, pastors and their wives will enjoy rest, renewal, and fellowship hosted by Pastor Bert Harper, Director of Marriage, Family, and Pastoral Ministries at AFA and co-host of Exploring the Word on AFR, and his wife, Jan. Our special speaker will be J.J. Jasper of AFR. Your registration fee covers lodging, meals, and materials. All you need to do is get there. The annual AFA Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat, October 20th through 22nd. Learn more and register at repairingthefoundations.net.
We'd love to see you there.
Shining light into the darkness. This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
I'm sure most of you have probably heard of Antonio Gramsci. I've talked about him in the past, haven't mentioned him lately, but Antonio Gramsci was a disciple later. I mean, Karl Marx had died by the time Antonio Gramsci was born, if I'm not mistaken. There might have been a little overlap there, but he didn't know him personally, but he was a disciple of his, worshipped Karl Marx. And Antonio Gramsci came up with this the theory of a quiet revolution by undermining and overthrowing the values that upheld what they would call bourgeois society. So rather than trying to have a violent revolution, you get in and you undermine all the principles and ideals that uphold a free society. And so for the United States of America, for example, who Antonio Gramsci even talked about, you get in and you supplant the fundamental values, individual liberty, the importance of family, faith in God. You supplant those with this new set of values. You get rid of all that. Instead of promoting the importance of family, you undermine that by telling kids, don't tell your parents that you're transgender. We'll keep that from them. They'll never understand. So you don't have to. We will take care of you. So the state then becomes the primary influence in the child's life. And you don't uphold family. You undermine that with homosexuality and promiscuity and voyeurism and you pornography, anything you can think of, just basically destroy that, there was a Hungarian communist, Grigori, and I'm not thinking of his last name, it'll come to me, who, when he became Commissar of Hungary, one of the first things he did was to instruct the teachers under that dictatorship to begin to talk to children about sexual matters and explain to them that their parents didn't do it because their parents were holding them back, and they were now going to be freed up to know the things that they really needed to know, and they shouldn't have confidence in their parents and their decrepit ideas. They should have confidence in the state. That was now going to teach them the right way. Hitler did the same thing with what he called Hitler Youth. So you undermine all of that so that you can create a society. You can have a revolution from within. Once you get a whole generation of people believing this new set of ideas and values, then they will create the communist utopia without even having to shed blood. You can shed blood later for all the people who are left over who still resist. You can kill them later. But you can start the society. Basically, you can create the new communist utopia without that. You can do it right under their noses without them even fully realizing it. And we all know that that's pretty much what they've been trying to do. And we hadn't noticed it. But we now are awakened. We are awakened. Not woke, but awakened. And we see exactly what they're trying to do. Now, I've said that the whole obsession with race, ROS, racial obsession syndrome, said ought to be a new psychological malady that needs treatment. But all of that is a replacement in the United States of America for class warfare, because class warfare doesn't work because we're too upwardly mobile. But you can create racial classifications, and now of course they've got other classifications where they've got Islam, and they've got homosexuality and transgenderism and non-binary, and slice and dice people however you need to, but you create that as a way of keeping people divided and having the Marxists ride in to rescue the society from its own internal division and decay. We're going to set up a just society in which we won't have millionaires and billionaires and some people who have to go without. Everyone is going to have. We're going to make everybody equal. Yeah, everybody equally miserable. Everybody equally impoverished. Here's a perfect example of this. The University of Michigan, by the way, I applied to the University of Michigan Law School, got in, but chose not to go. University of Michigan is now a liberal bastion, as so many of our schools now are. They didn't start out that way necessarily. Harvard started out as a school to educate ministers to take the gospel of Jesus Christ across the nation. Now it is a basket case of leftist, traitorous, ideological madness. I mean, they've sold out to Karl Marx and to communist China and pretty much anything else but the United States of America. But the University of Michigan has now started a pilot program to do away with grades for freshmen. And by the way, in the Department of the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts. Now, just think about this. We've got engineers and doctors coming from all over the world here because we're not producing enough engineers and doctors ourselves. And these idiots are doing away with grades, and for the first year, and this is a pilot program, because what they want to do, really, I think they want to do this at the whole university, because after all, there shouldn't be any sense of competition. And here's the excuse that they're using. Say this is going to be better for the mental health of freshmen. They're finding young people with too often are depressed and anxious, and doing away with grades is going to help them feel better about themselves. I mean, have you ever heard such nonsense? Look, folks, the reason why so many young people are depressed is that our society has become so confused, and we are not giving them a solid foundation upon which to view life and themselves. When you tell young people that there is no ultimate meaning to life, there is no God, there is no morality, that everybody's just making it up as they go along and doing the very best they can, that life is essentially meaningless, and that's exactly what they're being told. That's what's being transmitted to them. What do you expect? We weren't designed to live that way. We weren't designed to think that way. We were created to be in connection with, in intimate relation with Almighty God. Therein is our fulfillment. That's what makes us fully human. And when you rob people of that by telling them, oh, there's no God, there's no morality, nothing means anything. No wonder they're depressed. And they think, well, we'll get rid of grades and then they'll all feel better. And, you know, this is one of the reasons why we have been such a powerful society. Not the only reason, but one of the reasons. When a society is rooted and grounded in the foundation of God, it makes people stronger. Not that we are perfect, but it makes us stronger. Because we are not floating around on our own. We are not just kind of, bouncing from pillar to post. We know in whom we have believed. We know where we've come from. We know where we're going. We know who we are. That's what allows us to send young men to the beaches of Normandy at 18 and 19 years old to storm the beaches of Normandy in behalf of our liberty and against the evil of Nazism. Because they knew who they were. They knew what they were fighting for. Now, we can't have grades, and for freshmen, they're too anxious. It makes them depressed. I mean, we forget. See, this is part of not telling the truth about our history. We are pioneering people. That is in our spiritual and cultural DNA. We are pioneering people. Our ancestors arrived on this continent and they had to fight beasts. They had to fight Native Americans. They had to fight the weather. They had to fight the wilderness. I mean, they basically had to struggle. We don't come from a pampered legacy or ancestry. I mean, Americans need to reclaim our connection and understanding of the fact we're tough people. And again, I'm not saying we're perfect or that people don't get into trouble or people might not at times need emotional, psychological buttressing and help. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying the culture of our country is that the American people are a robust, dynamic, strong people. We don't need crying rooms. We don't need safe spaces. We don't need to have ourselves sheltered from someone who might offend us. We don't have a right not to be offended. Deal with it. I mean, it's part of life. We live in a sinful, sin-sick world. The Bible says, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. And we got these idiots running around saying, oh, well, no, don't be strong because we don't expect that of you. That might make you depressed and anxious. Here you go. Here's a puppy to rub. You can have some puppy therapy. I mean, what? I mean, grow up. And you got these bunch of godless idiots teaching our young people to be weak, as opposed to encouraging them to be strong. You hear me say, we are spiritual and intellectual heirs of George Washington. I mean, leaving aside the integrity and honor of the man, George Washington was tough. I mean, that man spent 5 years sleeping under the stars, fighting for the liberty of this nation. I mean, this is the guy who fell in an icy river in Ohio and lived to tell about it. This is the guy whose jacket was shot through 4 times and lived to tell about it. Now, of course, we know it was the grace of God operating him, but that's part of where our strength comes from. And when you take God out of the equation and you just leave people to their own devices, this is what you get. A bunch of weak-kneed, wimpy, it's just, we've got to move away from that. And I'm not talking about being hard or mean or nasty with people. I'm not saying that at all. I'm sure you all know that. But we can't treat people like they're fragile toys that at the least little pressure or conflict, they're going to crack into 1,000 pieces. Now, you all will forgive me. My wife sometimes says to me, she says, when she hears me talk this way, she says, "Now you're not in the Marine Corps anymore." So yes, I may have a little bit of that Marine Corps toughness that was instilled in me, but I think that's a good thing. And I think we would do well to encourage our young people to develop some toughness, and particularly our men, to get in touch with reasonable, rational, honorable masculinity. Folks, ain't nothing wrong with it. I mean, that's part of our problem now. And it's, instead of men just being men without apologizing for it, you got this idiot Syed out in Michigan talking about, football is toxic masculinity. That's, of all the people, I mean, he's in a religion that wants to wrap a woman up like a mummy and beat her if she dares to behave in a way that her husband or father or brother or whatever, some male doesn't appreciate, and kill her if she dares to fall in love with or wants to be with a man who is not a Muslim. And he's going to lecture us about toxic masculinity in football? Lord have mercy on us. Let me just say from this perspective, by the way, in the next segment, I want to start taking your calls. You can comment on anything I've mentioned or something else that you want to bring up. And there's plenty to bring up. We haven't even talked about Iran lately and the president dealing with, they've apparently had another assassination plot going, which they required them to sneak him out of the Air Force One he was going to use into another one that he ended up flying out in. I mean, that's another matter. We could certainly talk about that. But the number is 888-589-8840. That's 888-589-8840. Look, we need to reaffirm manhood specifically, but strength, human strength, and I don't mean physical strength alone. I mean just human fortitude, because I think that's part of who we are as Americans. This is Bishop E.W. Jackson in for Abraham Hamilton III. Number again is 888-589-8840. Back in a moment.
Hello, my name is Andy Miller, and I'm the president of Wesley Biblical Seminary based in Ridgeland, Mississippi. We are developing trusted leaders for faithful churches, and we do that based in the authority of Scripture and in the reality that Christians can be transformed. We do that also through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. We'd love for you to learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary at wbs.edu, where we're developing trusted leaders for faithful churches.
When God allows something difficult in your life, you could look at it as his gift to you. Here's Nancy DeMoss Wolgemuth.
If our way is perverse before God, what a mercy it is when God sets out to oppose us in that way.
God's way of getting your attention on the next Revive Our Hearts with Nancy DeMoss Wolgemuth.
The Names of God. This is David Wheaton, host of The Christian Worldview. One of the most instructive ways God reveals himself in his word is through his many names, about 20 or more. Elohim appears first in Genesis 1, describing God as the eternal, triune creator. When God said to Moses, "I am who I am, this is my name forever, and this is my memorial name to all generations," he established his personal name, Yahweh, or Jehovah, the self-existent one. The point of knowing God's names is not just knowledge, but rather to deepen our trust in and worship of the perfect Lord Adonai. Hear our most recent program on the names of God at thechristianworldview.org, and then join us this weekend as we discuss the theories around the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Listen to The Christian Worldview with David Wheaton, Saturday mornings at 8 Central on American Family Radio.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
When I was feeling the stress of too much credit card debt, I looked at two different options: debt settlement and debt management. They may sound the same, but guess what? They're not. Debt settlement seemed like a quick fix, but I found out it would destroy my credit, create tax headaches, and hit me with huge fees. They actually told me to stop paying my bills. No way, not me. Then I turned to a debt management plan developed by the team at Trinity. They worked with my creditors, lowered my payments, reduced my interest, saved me thousands, and paid off my debt. And Trinity is a Christian company, which is important to me.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-788-1813.
Looking to take the next step in your education? Blue Mountain Christian University offers graduate degree programs designed for working adults who want to grow professionally and personally. With graduate studies in business, education, and kinesiology, BMCU combines academic excellence with a Christian worldview. With flexible and hybrid formats and supportive faculty, you can pursue a graduate degree while balancing work, family, and calling. Learn more at bmc.edu.
The Hamilton Quarter podcast and one-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Quarter on American Family Radio.
You know, one of the things I learned, and I'm going to come to the lines. The lines are getting full. The number is 888-589-8840. One of the things I learned when I became a Christian was there was nothing effeminate about being a Christian man. And I think that people have been convinced that somehow being a Christian makes you weak. And people have tried to promote that notion. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I'll tell you something, you know, there was nothing weak about Jesus in any way. Not even physically. I mean, if you really want to, I mean, as a carpenter, during that time, you know, you didn't have power saws. If a man was a carpenter in Jesus' day, he was doing some serious lifting and some serious work. So there was nothing weak about Jesus, certainly not spiritually. I mean, he went into the temple and whipped people out of there. My house shall be called the house of prayer. You've turned it into a den of thieves. Get out. And he didn't ask anybody's permission. So there was nothing weak about Jesus, and there's nothing weak about Christian manhood. So just want to get that out there. One other thing I do want to mention before I come to the calls, and that is a former executive of SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center, has been arrested on fraud charges. This is probably going to be the first among a number of arrests as a result of they set up false bank accounts through which to launder the money that they were using to pay groups like the KKK, the skinheads, the National Socialists, in other words, Nazis, the American Nazis, and they paid people to go and create problems in Charlottesville, Virginia, when you had that big debacle there, and people blamed President Trump when he said there are good people on both sides. Well, he was absolutely right, because there were people out there who felt that I don't necessarily agree with lionizing or praising the Confederacy, but it's part of our history, and we should not be tearing down statues. Those are decent people on that side. There might have been some people there thought, well, I don't think we need these here. Maybe we need to put them somewhere where anybody who wants to can go see them. And, that's a reasonable position for people to take. But SPLC was responsible for making sure that the ugliest of the ugly showed up there. They financed them to be there, folks, to create problems. Somebody ought to go to jail. 888-589-8840. Let's come to your calls. Thank you all for your patience. Let's go first to Joseph in Ohio. Joseph, welcome.
Thank you, Bishop Jackson. It's good to hear your voice. Before I share what I'd like to share, my wife would like to say something.
Oh, would you please say something?
Would I please say? I know exactly who that is. Okay. Okay, folks. There's a little behind the scenes story I'll tell you about this one, but good to hear from you too.
Well, Joe and Carol, we know that you really absolutely love the Ark Encounter, so my husband wants to tell you about a new, wonderful ministry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is a partnership with the people at Answers in Genesis. They called it the Ark Voyage. It's a flood simulator where it's on a trailer, and it can be taken to different churches and locations. And what will happen is it's an evangelistic outreach tool. People will get in. A few people will get in. The doors will shut as if they're in the Ark. And then the people at Answers in Genesis are putting special effects in there to make you feel like you're, as much as possible in the Ark. People knocking on the door, trying to get in, sound effects like that. And then afterwards, there'll be an outreach and explanation of the gospel. But I just wanted to share that with you since we know that the Ark has been very, very special to you. And if I could give a website where anybody else
go right ahead.
Know more about it. Yeah, it's gototheworld.org. Just go to the world, all one word, .org.
All right. Well, listen, it is great to hear from you too. And who knows, maybe we'll have another Ark encounter one day. Okay. All right. Thank you all for the call. Folks, I ran into them at the Ark, and they heard me talking to my wife and came up to me and said, say something. And I looked, what? Well, they didn't recognize me. They hadn't seen me, but they recognized my voice. So when she said, say something, I knew immediately. All right, let's go to Dixon in Texas. Dixon, welcome.
Hello. You can hear me?
I can hear you. Great to have you on, Dixon.
Oh, all right. I love hearing you. You have common sense.
Well, thank you,
All right.
sir.
Okay, you can call me a conspiracy theorist because I believe that pandemic was a plandemic all the way through January the 6th. Because, okay, they knew the election was coming up, so Fauci had to say everybody has to stay home and mail in ballot. And then they knew the election was stolen, so they had to create chaos at January 6th. And I don't know if you saw the video of 3 Capitol police officers walking down the hallway. And then they seemed to change their clothes into Trump supporters and walking out. You know, it was all planned out, if you ask me.
Okay, well, look, thank you for the call, first of all, and appreciate hearing from you, and thank you for encouraging me. Look, I don't know about joining January 6th with the pandemic or with COVID, but I'll tell you one thing. It's really quite clear to me that involved in all of it was an attempt to demoralize the American people, to criminalize the American people, to basically try to turn us all into a bunch of people unworthy for any credibility whatsoever. They turned all the January 6 people into criminals. They turned all of us who objected to the way COVID was handled essentially into criminals or into dangerous people trying to kill others. So in that sense, I definitely do not disagree with you. Look, I think there are forces of evil at work behind the scenes. There's no question about that. I don't know that they're all connected or networking together. But look, I always say this. The greatest conspirator is the devil. And there is no question whether people are conscious of it or not. He is using them to the hilt to bring, as Jesus said, stealing, killing, and destroying to all of us. But thank God he's already defeated. Let's go to Steve. I think that's in Mississippi. Steve, welcome.
I'm from Missouri.
Missouri. Sorry about that, Steve.
That's okay.
Welcome anyway.
Fidelis, brother. I called to say thank you for taking my call, and we shouldn't be surprised about what is happening in this country today because we were warned about it 70 years ago in 1956 by Nikita Khrushchev when he said that we will take you over without firing a shot and we will bury you. Yeah. And he even explained in a speech how they were going to do that by getting our elected officials to give us little doses of socialism. And if they did that for a long enough period of time, one day we would wake up and say, oh, well, we're communist.
Yeah, well, you heard me talk about that. Again, thank you so much for the call, Steve. You heard me talk about Antonio Gramsci, and that's right in line with that. Basically, you just subvert from within. Communist China is doing that right now. Stalin, by the way, was doing that right under Roosevelt's nose. If you study the history, Stalin was absolutely trying to infiltrate the United States of America and infiltrate our government. And frankly, I don't think Joseph McCarthy was wrong. I think that he had some personal problems that were used to destroy him, frankly. But I don't think he was wrong when he said that, communism was basically infiltrating the country. And here we are now with people running for office and winning. Even this woman Hong, I mean, she only lost by half a point, folks, half a point. To think that many people are willing to support somebody that's crazy, who is that crazy. So, yeah, there's no question about it. They're moving with stealth behind the scenes to try to subvert our country from within. You all know that I called for when I was running for president, and I still believe it, we ought to have a national security audit. We ought to examine every instance in which there is any connection to communist China, to communist ideology or organizations anywhere in our society. And I'm not talking about a witch hunt. I'm just talking about trying to figure out where are our national security vulnerabilities as a result of having people in places that could hurt us who really aren't for our country and would be perfectly happy to consort with the enemy to undermine us and to hurt and to undermine and hurt our country. Just like the 911 terrorists did. I mean, they got their training right here in our country. Now, that wasn't with the complicity of most Americans, any American I can think of, but they were just moving right among us to destroy us from within. Let's go to William in Texas. William, welcome.
Howdy, Kimo Sabi. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Howdy back at you.
I have an answer for all the senseless murders and killings, that kind of thing. We need the court. You're going to get your day in court. You tell me. You're going to get your day in court, but you're going out back tonight, Bubba. They ain't going to be 2 years down the road. Anyway, thank you.
All right. Listen, William, it's interesting. I was saying that very thing to my wife, I think, this morning, talking about some of these heinous crimes that people can actually, we were talking about this murder committed, I think it was in Idaho, the guy who went and killed those 4 girls. And, I was saying to my wife, I said, once you are convicted of a heinous crime like that, killed 3 girls and 1 guy, and you've killed 4 innocent people, forget it, Jack. It's over. It's over. We're not going to spend 50 years feeding you and clothing you and giving you medical care and all of that. But the prosecutors, anyway, so all I'm saying is, I agree with you, brother. Let's go to Tim, also in Texas. Tim, welcome. Let's see. Did I get you, Tim? There you go.
Are you there?
Yes, I can hear you now, Tim.
Okay. My question is, if actually these people that are running socialists, that's actually communists, when they get to Washington, D.C., and they have to take an oath of office, aren't they supposed to swear to uphold and defend the Constitution? Because we know they're going to be lying when they take the oath.
You've got that right. And, of course, their ideology teaches them that it's okay to lie. You can lie in order to advance communism, just like you can lie in order to advance Islam. The same thing is true there. I mean, these Muslims who are taking the oath of office on the Quran, I don't believe it for a moment. I don't believe that they're committed to the Constitution of the United States. I believe they're committed to Sharia law. Thank you for the call, Tim. I think we've got room for time just barely to get you in. Ryan. And Ryan, you are from Mississippi. Welcome.
Yes, sir. I am, and appreciate the time. Long-time listeners, and great to call in. First time calling in.
Oh, great.
First, God bless you. Appreciate the work that y'all do, and just the honesty and the logic, and as one guy said earlier, the sense, the common sense. But I wanted to comment on, you mentioned that Christian men are seen, or I guess societally is seen as weak, the toxic masculinity, all of that. Mm-hmm. But that's something that me and a bunch of guys in my circle that I'm essentially do life with, go to church with, discipleship groups, all of that, discuss on a regular basis, is you can be a manly man, doesn't mean you have to go out and drink and do bar fights. Jesus
right.
was the manliest of men for us to emulate. And then you mentioned God's plan. You said, we're not perfect, and you're absolutely right, but his plan is perfect, and that's why it works.
Amen. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate the call. Ryan, that's going to do it for today. Folks, always great to be with you, and thank you all for your calls and your very intelligent, insightful comments and questions. And look, you know what to do. We've already won the battle. Jesus won it for us, but we have to stand up, step up, speak up, and refuse to back up, knowing that we cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side.